Retro lunch break.
Yes.
Retro lunch break with Nick and Rick.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Retro Lunch Break, the podcast. Joining me always is my co-host Nick, and I want you to wake me up before you go.
Nice.
Yes. And joining us on this episode is our very special guest, Eddie. Eddie is living on a prayer.
Yeah?
Yeah?
We're halfway there, Eddie. Take my hand.
There you go, yeah. And there's nothing I can say, but just a total eclipse of the heart. I'm your host and moderator, Rick. So today we are talking about video game music. Now this is something that is a huge factor in my relationship with all the video games that I've played. A lot of times I get so attached to the songs, the music, just the background noises. I shouldn't even call it noises, the background art
The
that
ambiance.
is formed out of these efforts that, especially in the earlier games where they didn't have much to work with, and yet beautiful tracks were created that are still memorable to this day. So my question to you for this podcast is, what are the types of songs, what are the songs that have come from certain series that you love so much, why, and perhaps even we can get into certain remixes of artists that have done a change in the original versions that we love even more, and stuff that's coming out even nowadays, because you still have, even though we can have full orchestrated music in a video game, we can still have chip tunes, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right? The
chiptune.
8-bit type of music,
Yeah.
chip tune music in video games nowadays. So let's start it off
And not
with...
just video games.
And not just video games?
Yeah,
What
we'll talk
do-
about that at the end.
Oh, okay.
I want to save that till the end.
Okay, that's fine. So let's start off with the younger selves and the older type consoles that we have. So how early do you think we could start? NES? Or...
I have a list. I prepared for this one. I have lists of all the 8 and 16-bit consoles that I have fond memories of.
I would have to say that my earliest would start with the C64, with the Commodore.
Mine would be Atari 2600, but there's not memorable music from Atari 2600. That's more nostalgia than memorable music for me personally.
More nostalgia than okay.
Yeah, because there's not a track that I can think of from Atari that I can come up to and be like, hey, E.T., and you would be like, oh yeah, that was rockin'. Yeah, that just doesn't happen with those.
See, I can.
Okay.
See, I can, and there is even an example that I can give you where a rock band in Germany took a sample of that track and it featured it in one of their songs. So the one that I'm thinking of is a game that was called the Guiana Sisters. Does anybody know what that is?
I know the game.
You know of
I
it?
don't know the music.
No.
So the Guiana Sisters was a spoof of Mario. That was on the Commodore console, and also I think like Amiga.
Yeah, Amiga had them. That's
Yeah.
the ones I've seen.
So it was nothing short of Mario Brothers, the original Mario Brothers, and they even had a tagline which was, if I remember correctly, it was like "Step aside, brothers, the sisters are in town now." So the intro music for that game is so iconic and so memorable, and it's so good. It's this really deep, reaching guitar, like really good rock metal already, and this was really good on the Commodore too. And the Commodore had like really beeps and boops for sounds. There, like I mentioned, there was a rock band, a rock group in Germany that took a sample of that song and played it, and it's so iconic, and you totally notice it. And the music from the first level too is really, really iconic. There has been remakes of this game on the DS.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, on the DS, and there's one on the PS4 even though this game was kind of a deliberate rip-off of
awesome.
Mario Brothers. The music from it is just so fantastic. And now one more, because as I remember talking about the Commodore, there was a video game that I used to play was called Lazy Susan. And in it was a really weird game where it was kind of like elevator action.
Okay.
So you had this like hotel front, and you had to go up and down in these elevators, and there would be these rooms that you go into, and every room was a different little mini game. And from there was a background music song that is now, I think, iconic in sports matches from soccer. I bet if I hummed it, you would recognize it. It goes do 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 do.
Really?
It's actually
is that from? Really?
It's actually from that game.
That's strange.
Oh wow!
Yeah, or if it's vice versa, it'd be hard to believe it was vice versa, but I recognize it from that game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could find. We could probably find a version on YouTube, and I can show you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very, 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 very iconic. So that would be like the earliest ones for me today that I would actively reach out and still listen to because I love the way that they sound. And I don't know, maybe that's nostalgia.
I don't know. Those might be better examples of actual composed music. Mine was more so that the Atari had, since it was super limited, didn't have that. Not until I got an NES and started listening to music on the NES. Because, I went to arcades a lot. You don't really hear a lot of music in arcades. You just hear a lot of noises coming from everywhere. It's hard to really just pick out the game. Yeah, because the speakers you're standing towards are louder, but there's so much extra background music that it's kind of hard at times to hear it. But so the NES was the first console for me where I started to realize that game music was something that I wanted to listen to outside of just playing a game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it became a passion for me to enjoy. So I do really get stuck in the whole chip tune outside of the music, rock music or whatever popular music I listen to. But we're talking about video game music. I'm really stuck in the chiptune era mostly for things that I love and adore and think are just phenomenal pieces of musical art.
It's interesting. I don't know when was the first time you heard the phrase or the word chiptune?
I want to say for me it was 2004, 2005. I started listening to chiptune artists. There used to be a website, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a website where people would make chiptune music with LSDJ, Little Studio DJ. It's a program for the Game Boy where you can compose music, and they would post their little music bits on this website for people to listen to and rate. I wish I remember the name of the website. I know it closed down.
I remember seeing videos like that on YouTube where people had like these like Frankenstein type like creations of all these things hooked together and like a Game Boy being hooked up there.
Yeah.
There's a scene of that in Steven Universe. Sour Cream, who acts as a DJ in one of the episodes, he has a Game Boy hooked up. I think it's a Game Boy Advance hooked up to a whole DJ system. Yeah, and I remember like seeing that they would touch certain parts of it and it would create like this noise.
Yeah, you can set the tracks beforehand, and then there's other pads you can add in different noises. Yeah,
which made sense to me because that was like you were getting those eerie kind of noises. I didn't know that the phrase chiptune was everything 8-bit. Encompasses everything 8-bit.
Oh, really? Because this is the first time I'm hearing that term.
It's the first time you're hearing chiptune. Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah,
if you go on YouTube or Spotify or any SoundCloud, anything with music on it, if you type in chiptune, you'll get
artists. I'll talk about some artists at the end here. That's what I was talking about. How chiptune has gone past video games and it's now artists out there creating music. And I have a list of some that I would like to touch on and mention that I really enjoy their music.
Chiptune artists?
Yes, chiptune artists.
Let's
That'll be for the end. I'll save that for the end.
Yeah, let's save that towards the end. Let's try to see if we can circle back
with some
to
NES
stuff. Because the earliest ones were for me for the C64, for Nintendo.
It's definitely the NES, and I have a list here. I'm just gonna kind of go through. Stop me if you want to talk about them. A lot of these are obvious picks and iconic music. I'll just go through some of the ones that we can kind of go through a little fast here. DuckTales. The Moon theme.
I am not familiar with that game.
I'll have to play it for you. It's it's the most iconic song from DuckTales. It's the Moon theme, and it's just this beautifully composed piece of music that makes you feel like you're in outer space, and it's just, with the limitations that they had there, it was so well done. We played Batman recently on the channel. The music from Batman is really well done on the NES. Kirby's Dream Land's another one that has really good music.
Is so fun and sweeping.
Yeah, it's sweeping, and it fits the levels, and it gives you the sense of urgency when you're at a boss versus hey, this is a level where I can kind of just walk through a little easier because it's going to be a little more slow paced and happy. The music really fits each level.
I think that I love the thing about Kirby. I played it recently on the Nintendo Online system on the Switch, where I didn't notice at first that the sound effects were apart from the background music. They mesh together so well.
Yeah, it's done so well. It is a later NES game. It is the second game in the Kirby series.
Oh, I didn't know.
The first one was on Game Boy, which also had phenomenal music. A lot of the music from the Kirby NES one is derived from the Game Boy one, but with just a larger channel size to be able to listen. Other games, there's Bionic Commando, has some great music, some great fast-paced action music in it where it makes you feel like, I'm running around and, in this area. Punch-Out has some really good tracks in it for
Punch-Out
like
has music in it?
yeah, like the intro music is very iconic, and the intro music is actually based off. I believe it's the intro music is based off of this old music that would play in like the 1920s and 30s before radio boxing events
heard
were
that.
on there, and that's what he used to compose that.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I've heard that
Yeah.
that fact. I believe I heard that from the gaming historians.
On when he did the Punch-Out
the
video,
Punch-Out
he did talk about that during
I
that.
do believe
yeah.
he talked about that. Yeah.
Dragon Warrior for the sense of
Yes,
fantasy.
yes.
The first Dragon Warrior game
The
on the
intro
NES,
song.
the intro song, and then the first song when you're in the town, that little melody gets me so in the mood to play a fantasy game. Like, oh yes, I'm gonna go on an adventure with a sword. You just feel it. Yeah.
Okay, so I know that recently they had the Nintendo had their showcase, and they were showing the next Dragon Warrior game, and
Yeah.
they played
11.
the music from the first one, the intro song, and it just makes it just hits
Yeah,
me.
because
in my heart.
it has
Yeah,
the
I
8-bit
love-
music
yeah.
option and the 8-bit graphics.
And
that you can
it's so
interchange
iconic.
it.
It just picks me up, and it makes me it gets me teary eyed.
Never played it. I'm sorry.
It's a fantastic game, and the music is great.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
that intro song, yeah.
And I'll just touch on this, and I think in my opinion, the Mario series on the NES, Mario 1, 2, and 3, Mario 1 level being some of the most iconic video game music, or maybe not iconic, but most meaningful video game music ever composed, because up until that point, you didn't have a song that the second it started playing, everyone knows what it is. Mario has become a character that everyone knows. World 1 song, within the first 3 notes of that, everybody who's ever played that game can recognize that song and remember that game.
It's the same music except for the underground levels. Isn't it the same?
There's
and then
the
castle.
so there's the overworld,
Overworld.
yeah, overworld, underground,
Underground,
castle, star. The star power.
Oh, yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Star Power.
Yeah,
Which,
so
that's another one too. That's
yeah,
never
but just
changing.
everything
So-
from that. But just the first thing you hear in that game, because the intro screen is silent, and then you press start, and it shows you your lives, and then it goes, and the music starts, and everyone knows that. It's just so
Yeah.
iconic. So,
Yeah.
personally, I love Mario 3's music. It's the best. Mario 2 has phenomenal music
I
also.
really like the music in Mario.
Oh,
too.
it's so good.
Yeah,
It's so good. It's so fitting for that game and everything, and just the sense of urgency when you're on the boss. The din, 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 din.
I love it when you're in the
Yeah.
caves.
Yeah.
in the caves that do 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 do.
Yeah.
do, yeah, just
Yeah. It's good. Other big series on the NES that I think we should talk about is the Castlevania series 1, 2, and 3. The 8-bit Castlevania games have some amazing music that is rock and gothic inspired music. And what is it? Bloody Tears from Castlevania
Bloody
2
Tears.
is the most. I mean, Castlevania 2, in my opinion, is the worst of the 3 games, but it is the most iconic Castlevania song.
Thank you for mentioning the name. I was trying to think of it. I know I've heard James and Mike from Cinemassacre
Yeah.
when they do their offhand videos where they mention. I know they mentioned that song, like that's the one that they like the most.
Yeah, everyone that's
Yeah.
like their favorite song from those games. I mean, all the music is from those is great. Castlevania 3 has great music too. Now I'm going to get into some of. Actually, I think I'm only going to talk about 2 more, really. Here, it's 3 more here. It's no particular order, but these are my top 3 video game franchise soundtracks from the NES, and we'll start with Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2. Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2 by Technos have some amazing music in it.
I should recognize that music more
Yeah.
because I played that all the time on the Commodore.
Yeah.
I think if you played it for me,
I would.
recognize
You would
it.
know it right away. I just want to say, Double Dragon 1 Level
Double
2. Double Dragon 1 Level 2 is my favorite Double Dragon music. I don't know the name of it, but it is the song. I'll just look up Double Dragon NES or Game Boy. The Game Boy version of it is perfect too.
Really?
Level 2, and it'll play, and it's just a song, and it's so funky, and it just has such a groove to it. It's great.
You know, you're making me think. Like, when do you think the video game music like gets implemented in the development of a game? Do you think it's like done like at the very end or at the beginning?
A lot of times I hear
Like
it's at
throughout.
the well, for the older stuff it was at the end after the levels were created. Like for Mario, the levels were designed and created and they were given to him and he tried to match the music to the levels.
And then
and so that's-
I imagine there's a difficulty with trying to make it fit within whatever's left on the cartridge
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Then Mega Man 2. Who doesn't love Mega Man 2's soundtrack?
yeah, the
Mega Man
intro.
2, the intro song, just the way that starts, it's all nice and slow and happy, and you're reading this story at the bottom, and then it talks about it. Evil comes back, and then the music progresses and gets slowly. It gets faster and faster and faster and faster. Then you see Mega Man on top of the building, and there's like this pause break, and then it goes into this like hard hitting, and you know at that point you're in for a good time because the game is going to be awesome. And then every stage in that, the music is just so phenomenal. It's some of the most iconic.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, in Mega Man 2, it's Bubble Man Bubble Man. I think he's.
Metal Man's my favorite. I think yours was either Bubble or Crash. I can't remember which level. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or it might have been Airman's level.
Maybe it's Airman.
Yeah.
I do believe I have a remix of that one that I just love it so much.
It's just so good. It holds up so well, and it's just if you're a Mega Man fan, that music. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is no bad music in any of the Mega Man series on the NES, but for me personally, 2 has some of the best tracks on there.
We have to circle back to Mega Man when we talk about the X5 and 6 on the PlayStation, because there's some songs on there that I want to touch on. So
Yeah. Just one last one, and my favorite one, and no surprise here, The Legend of Zelda.
oh yeah,
And part 2, Link's Adventure.
Link's Adventure. Yeah,
Link's
yeah.
Adventure. There's the music's so good in that. That just they fit so well in the game and everything. I can't remember the exact song, but I was reading a story about how the composer was originally going to use some classical song for the overworld theme of Legend of Zelda.
Wow.
But right before the game was out, he found out that the song hadn't reached public domain yet. So he wrote the overworld song. He rushed to write the overworld song for it, and it's the iconic Zelda music we have today. And it's just funny because we could have had some classical piece in there that he felt fit, but it just hadn't hit the public domain yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little weird facts that I picked up.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I will talk a lot about like certain Nintendo consoles because they're what mean the most to me when it comes to video game music.
It's what you had growing up.
Yeah, growing up, and what I
Yeah.
still go back to listen to when I want to listen to video game music for enjoyment. If I'm going on YouTube and I'm like, hey, what do I want to listen to for video game soundtracks? If I ever feel like listening to video game, I'll just start picking games, and they all tend to be in the 8 and 16-bit era.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do the same thing, right? Do you listen to video game music? once in a while?
Absolutely, I still do. I guess if I may, this is. Are you finished with yours?
Oh, with the
Nintendo?
NES, yeah. Thank you for listening. By the way,
With just to wrap up on the Nintendo, I wanted to mention the Dragon Warrior one. That's a super iconic one for me, even though I didn't get the Nintendo until later on in my life. For me, growing up, it was the Sega Genesis, well, the C64 and the Sega Genesis. But with you, Eddie, anything you'd like to touch on with the Nintendo?
Yeah, sure.
library?
Like, I played different games, I guess, from you guys. The stuff that I remember is the music from like games like Contra,
Oh, Contra has good music.
yeah.
Ninja Gaiden.
Ninja Gaiden has good music. There were ones when I was making my list, I was like, hey, I'm going to pass up on some of these because I'm sure someone else is going to mention these,
Yeah.
but there were some I just couldn't go.
So those
into,
were the
yeah.
games that I was playing, and
Yeah.
I may not be as hardcore. I guess hardcore fan of just listening to video game music all the time. Like I usually just listen to it when I'm playing the games and I
playing the game,
enjoy the
yeah.
music, but I don't really, listen to video game music outside of just the games. Usually, if I do, this because it's something very specific, something that just reminds me of the game. That I just want to listen to that particular song at that point in time that I think about it. And but those are the games that I played. Ninja Gaiden. I remember Contra. I was showing you
Cabal. Yeah, Cabal.
Just
Yeah.
talking about
Cabal?
NES.
I don't know that one.
It was like a cursor on the screen. You just shoot enemies.
Yeah,
On the screen,
I can lend it to you. We can play it. We can play. I have Cabal. I own Cabal, and it's like a light gun game that you don't have to use a light gun for. It has the option for the controller, so that you weren't forcing people to have a light gun because it came out around the time when the light gun was not always bundled with the action. I think it was called the action bundle, which didn't come with a game. On the NES, it was like $89 instead of $110 for the big, or $120 for the big. Or was it called the value pack? I can't remember the name right now. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, Eddie, if you could maybe elaborate a little bit, what type of game is that? Is that?
I guess is that just considered like
I guess it's like it's almost
like
like
a
a first-person shooter.
First-person shooter.
Kinda.
What part of was it like? Is there like a specific track that you really like from that game?
no, just trying to remember music from from the console, that one just popped into my head. And I'm not
okay.
sure why.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was just those games. I didn't play as many games as you guys. That's a nice list, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
he had.
But I do have the, I did play the Mario games, so I love the music from those games. I definitely agree. I never played the Castlevania games, so I can't, I really don't know what the soundtrack sounds like, but I'm sure it's amazing. And as far as the Mega Man games, believe it or not, I started with Mega Man X. That was actually my first Mega Man game.
That was a lot of people's first game too.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just lucky enough to have earlier Mega Man games as a kid, playing those and being frustrated as a kid by those. But Mega Man X was
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Because Mega Man X is Super Nintendo, right?
Yes.
It wasn't just NES. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really small when I was playing NES games, and that's all I kind of remember from the NES.
Okay, so for me, growing up, it was the Sega Genesis that was a big console in my life. Still to this day, I still listen to certain soundtracks from the games that I played so much when I was a kid. Off the top of my head, there was Herzog Zwei, which was a giant robot. It was like StarCraft. It was like StarCraft before StarCraft, and it had a it came from a company called Technosoft, and their lines of games had really iconic music. One of the games that usually people talk about online I've seen is a game called Thunderbird, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't have that game, unfortunately, but it was from Technosoft, and people loved the soundtrack from that one. For me, since I had Herzog Zwei, I still have a couple tracks on my phone that I listen to that it's on repeat because it was just so great. And the great thing about the Genesis music, I probably should have started off with this too, is compared to the Nintendo one, it had
Super Nintendo one. Let's compare it Genesis to Super Nintendo because they were the same
era, right?
The same era, yeah.
You're right.
The same amount of channels, or I mean, the audio chips were slightly different. Hence why the sound, but yeah.
But the songs from the Genesis were really like punchy and like high pitched,
crunchy and grindy.
They were super different from the Super Nintendo. It's like if you play like a sound from either or, I imagine I could tell the difference.
You really could. I know I could. I just want to say the Super Nintendo always felt like a warmer tone coming out of the TV, as where the Genesis always felt like more of like a, hey, I put my synth, but not only synth, it's like I turned my amp up to 11 and put it through a distortion pedal, just in your face, just grindy,
which going off of that is that makes me think of the soundtrack to Kid Chameleon.
Oh yeah,
like any song from that game I can instantly recall. And Kid Chameleon had like, I don't know, 12 different themes to it, all with their own different type of music to them. And I love them all, and they're just so great. Another one that I still listen to this day is the soundtrack to Truxton, which was an arcade game. It's a starship on the bottom, shoot 'em up, everything coming down.
Kind of like Defender. No, not Defender for the...
Those types
City
of
City of Atlantis. I don't know what it's talking about, where you have like stationary units that shoot as stuff is coming from the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
A Missile Command is another. They're a Missile Command-esque game.
We're in Truxton. If I'm not mistaken, there's only about like 3 different tracks. Like there was just the space level, and then there was like the base, and then the boss, and then it just repeat after that. But it's just great music. So there was Truxton. There's another game I used to play. It was called Hellfire. That was another spaceship one. That one had really great music too. Let's see. Another one that I would always listen to on the Genesis. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay. I could throw some Genesis games out there that I feel like I'm not super with the Genesis, super involved with it. I wasn't as a kid. I had one for a while and I played it. And there's certain games that I love the soundtracks to, but I do fall on the Super Nintendo side because I think it's better sound quality personally. But just games. I was hoping you were going to mention the Sonic series, so I didn't have to.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, how could I forget the Sonic series?
And Sonic Spinball.
I was just going to say, if out of all the titles, I would want to go with the music from Sonic Spinball the most.
Have you noticed that we reference Sonic Spinball a lot? That's our... Other people, like other channels, will be like, "Oh, we always reference Legend of Zelda." We're the Sonic Spinball channel for some reason, just because it's had such good music. It's such a fun game. But
absolutely.
Revenge of Shinobi.
Yes.
has some of my favorite Genesis music on there.
The third one, yeah. I used to play the third one all the
Shinobi.
time.
Yeah,
I did play. I think that's the one I played a lot too. Was
Yeah,
the
that
third
one
one.
has great.
Yeah,
music,
Revenge of
yeah.
Shinobi had some amazing music for it, and just the whole to go into the sound effects for that too. Just the noise you would make when you would hit a crate or when you would hit an enemy. It was like this thumping noise. It felt like you were really hitting something. I like that. Golden Axe.
Oh yeah.
Who doesn't love
yeah.
Golden Axe's music? Golden Axe had some fun music in there. It was really good, and Rocket Knight Adventures. And
You always talk about that.
yeah,
game,
we really need to
and
play
I never
Rocket
got
Knight.
to play it.
We really need to play Rocket Knight because Rocket Knight is one of Konami's best, if not Konami's best game for the Genesis. And the last one I want to bring up is also amazing, Castle of Illusion.
Castle of Illusion.
Mickey Mouse
Oh,
and the
Mickey
Castle
Mouse.
of Illusion. Yeah, that has some
Oh
really,
my God, I
really
think I
good
did play
music.
that
Yeah.
one.
On the
It
Genesis.
sounds
yeah.
familiar. Yeah.
It has some really good music for that system. That's pretty much
Okay.
all I have for the Genesis. I don't have. I mean, we could talk about Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, but
Oh, I love
yeah,
the
that's
music,
yeah. But that's kind of I kind of kept things off of my list that were on all consoles, and I also kept things off my list that were like like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. It's like saying, oh, I like Michael Jackson's music. Okay, doesn't mean it, it's different than video game music made for video game. That was a song that was
Yeah.
turned into a video game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is true.
So a couple of other ones that I finally remember now is Toe Jam and Earl. I love the music from the first Toe Jam and Earl so much. It's so 90s.
Yeah.
And every track is just so
90s
great.
funk.
And yeah, 90s hip hop funk.
Yeah, like you should put on a big hat and a clock while you're playing it.
Yeah,
a big floppy hat.
That one is like, I bet you could play it now and like it'd still be good. It'd still be cool with the kids.
but yeah.
I bet it would be. Another
Kids,
one-
get in here.
Yeah. Another game that we finally got to play, and I actually wanted you to play it because I wanted you to hear the music. It was from the music from Final Zone, because it does such a great job of being like super futuristic, kind of techno, fast paced. Like it's the type of music you would hear piloting a giant robot. I still to this day I still listen to that track. I think it's really great programming music because I like to listen to music that will help me keep me thinking fast and forward, and Final Zone music does that to me. And of course, I would want to wrap it up with music from a game that I played like way too much of when I was a kid, which is Might and Magic. So like I bet you would love that music because it's all very much like music. Like if the music at a Ren Fair was chiptune based, that's the music you would
I
hear.
would probably enjoy
Yeah.
that quite a bit.
Yeah, I bet you would. Now I want you to listen to that now.
Yeah.
I wondered if you get a kick out of it. Yeah. So
I'll
I mean,
definitely have to listen to that.
yeah. So I mean, still to this day, I still listen to these tracks because it was just such great music. And now the last one that I will mention about the Genesis is the only one that I actually know the particular artist that made the music is the artist named Ippo, IPPO. He made music for the Phantasy Star series. And it's just an iconic name that I saw, and I remember like beating the second title on the Genesis and seeing that name and then seeing it in future titles. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I do believe even to now he's still composing music for Sega Genesis. For Sega.
Oh, that's cool.
And so
okay.
he's somebody I do love to see, and
That's good.
I've loved all his work so far.
Good. Yeah.
So that's it for Sega Genesis for me.
Awesome.
That's it.
I don't have too many titles from the Sega.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the Super Nintendo?
Yeah, we should do the flip side of the coin, the Super Nintendo.
Yes,
Yeah.
if I may, one of my favorite lines from Mystery Science Theater, the reboot here on Netflix, where one of the movies starts and it's playing this really like upbeat Ren Fair type music, and it's Jonah says, "Oh, it's nothing but orchestral hits. It's like a Super Nintendo soundtrack."
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so it's like
yeah.
big,
Yeah. Full
orchestral,
sounding.
Thank
Yeah.
you, full
Yeah.
sounding music. Yeah. It sounds like you want to start off with.
No, I'm gonna
pass.
I'm gonna pass this one over to Eddie to
Eddie,
start
okay.
because I've been
the
talking
pressure.
too
No,
much.
that's fine. I
And
enjoy listening to you guys
and then
talk about all
I can
this
cross
stuff.
some stuff off my list here,
Yeah.
and then
Super Nintendo, huh? Well, Donkey Kong Country.
Yes.
It has a
100%.
great soundtrack. You were mentioning the water level is your favorite.
yeah, the water level,
See,
the
I never
underwater
got to
level.
play-
Oh,
Donkey Kong on anything.
Don't worry, that
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't get to
Don't
play
worry,
them.
Country comes in our December videos. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we're mentioning this. Now, I have heard some music, and I thought it was. I know it's an intro song to a newer title, or later title, where the music, it's the intro song, and it plays, and then it changes. It gets really soft, and it goes like do do do
Yeah.
do do, and then
That's the
Nick,
original Donkey Kong Country.
You mentioned that,
Yeah.
and, which unfortunately I don't know what to compare it to.
Yeah.
But that I've heard that part before at a video I watched on YouTube, and I really like that part. For some reason, I was explaining to you, Nick. For some reason, the tone that it gets, it really makes me feel something right here in my heart, where my heart would be, where the giant hole is.
Yes.
Yeah, and it just.
And on that day, his heart grew 3 sizes big.
Listening to that
Yeah.
part,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I really like that part.
Yeah, we'll get to that, and you'll be able to listen to that. That is, that's a really funny scene because that's the first time you're introduced to this whole. Before Donkey Kong was Donkey Kong 1, 2, and 3, and it was Donkey Kong was the villain, and well, except for in the part 2, or no, Donkey Kong Jr. I'm thinking. Sorry, it's Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3. But this one was the first one where you were introduced to the whole Kong family, and you have this old man sitting on top of the
Cranky
old
Kong.
girders, Cranky,
Kong,
who
yeah.
is original Donkey Kong, and so that means
No
that
way.
Donkey Kong in those is actually Donkey Kong Jr. Well, it's not. None of this is
Wait,
confirmed.
yeah,
This is
is
all
he?
just thoughts because Cranky's sitting up there on the old girders from the
Yeah.
original Donkey Kong, playing this music on a crank with
Yeah.
a big I can't remember what they're called, but the horn,
Like a megaphone.
the megaphone on it,
megaphone, yeah.
and then Donkey Kong throws a boombox up there, and it starts playing all like this funky hip hop music. Yeah, and it's just funny, and so you get introduced to this whole family. It's a really nice moment in the
Wow.
series. It's the first time in the series where it's like, hey, Donkey Kong's not just an arcade game; it's now a world, and this is what's happening.
That is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Wow, so you missed out on that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, but if I would, from the Donkey Kong series, my favorite song is actually from the Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of the song is, but it's like
The
the Bramble
Bramble
Yeah.
something song.
Symphony or something like that.
There's a guy we used to work with named Daniel. He would kill
Yeah,
us
he
right
would
now if we
know.
couldn't remember the name of that song. It's his favorite song. Him and I used to have such a discussion about which one, like, I prefer Donkey Kong music and he prefers Donkey Kong Country 2 music, and we would just go back and forth on the
wow,
reasons why.
okay.
Yeah, it was good. It was
Wow,
fun
well, I
times.
guess I
Yeah.
agree with you, Daniel.
Okay.
I like that soundtrack better. Yeah.
Can't
but,
go wrong either way. Yeah.
What else was on Super Nintendo? I guess I was playing like F-Zero. That's a
Yeah.
that's a
Oh,
Super
yeah.
Nintendo game,
Yeah, I had
right?
that on my
Just
list,
racing, using those
Yeah. Futuristic racing cars, yeah.
Yeah, that soundtrack was pretty good.
Yeah, that was an early soundtrack. That was a launch title for the Super Nintendo. So
Really? I
it
didn't know that.
was early on. As you get later, soundtracks expanded and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's a really good one for an early game. Yeah.
I have one if I can throw
Yeah,
this in.
go ahead, jump in.
Super Nintendo. It's no surprise. It's an RPG, but certain theme songs that were for the characters in Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy 3.
3, yeah.
3, yeah.
3 here, 6.
3 here, 6 in Japan. The two song titles that I love and I still listen to this day is for Celeste and for Terra. I absolutely love those songs, especially for Celeste because that one was like super like heartfelt, and I bet I could recite the whole song right now. It always reminded me of like a lullaby. Like I always thought it was like a really perfect lullaby. And then also for Terra's song as well, which I'm so happy to see that Terra has become such a long-standing character in like all the titles. I just saw the other day somebody was playing Smash Brothers, and I saw she was an assist trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've really done a good job with Square to bring back a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those two, I mean, the whole soundtrack to Final Fantasy 3 is fantastic. For me, those two stand out the most. Have you played 3 or 6, Eddie? No.
No, remember I mentioned I've never played any of the Final Fantasy games.
Okay.
Until
Yeah.
now.
Have you played?
Yes.
6? Okay.
Yes.
Any titles stick out for you? Like for instance of the other characters?
No, it's a phenomenal.
The other 50 that I can mention.
It's a phenomenal game
Yeah.
through and through. To me, that's one of those games where the story was so good that it kind of overshadowed. I remember more the story than the music in that one. As some of these other games, it's equal. The music was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but it just for me, it's just not one of those ones where I go back and listen to that personally. It didn't. Yeah. It's iconic music. It's great music. Would have made my list, but it didn't make my list because it didn't have the. Hey, am I going to go back and listen to this start to finish this soundtrack? I don't know. Maybe, but not for sure. Not a guaranteed 100%.
I would. I absolutely would. Yeah. Another game that I still listen to, the music, which is super iconic too, is Chrono Trigger. The music from Chrono Trigger. Yeah. And that one's like, that one I'm gonna lead into something that encompasses remixes. So the music from Chrono Trigger is just fantastic. It's super, like, to me, like if you say like Super Nintendo, that's immediately what I think of in terms of like that Super Nintendo sound. Now, what I want to talk about is OC Remix, which was a website that it's a place for people to collab with remixes, specific remixes of video game music. And I found these amazing remixes of like a lot of music, and I think it first started with Chrono Trigger. So like any classical, any classic song that you could think of like any game, you could find a remix of it that would make it like tenfold better.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's lots of stuff on there, and it's not just old school music. You can get anything from back then to probably even now. It's been a while since I've checked on it, but great site. I know I've mentioned it to you and
yeah,
Nick,
you
have no idea what it is, and I can't believe it too, because I mean you could take any of these titles and you could probably find a remixed a version of it on OC Remix.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's what I would want to point out on the Super Nintendo. I believe it's just for me that stands out the most is Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3 music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Outside of the ones that were mentioned, ones that really stand out for me will be Killer Instinct.
Really?
I love the soundtrack for Killer Instinct.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like that game. I really like the music with that. I remember when I got the game, it came with a CD of the soundtrack that I would listen to. I believe that's the first soundtrack I actually owned of a game at that time in my life.
Wow.
I've gotten others in different ways since then, but that was the first one that I actually owned and would listen to, where I didn't have to turn on the game. So that was awesome. Castlevania 4 or Super Castlevania 4, just the music in that is so. I love all the Castlevania music, but this one it's just that first scene after you go into the castle and you're in the courtyard, and it just starts off with like it feels like, oh, this is normal Castlevania 1 music. It's like dun, 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 and then it just keeps going, and it's just so good and builds on itself, and it's just such a good track, and it just gets me hyped every time. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play Castlevania when I hear this. Mega Man X.
Thank you.
Mega Man X.
I was thinking my favorite song from track from that game is the water one. The octopus. I can't remember his name.
Like, it's not Steel Octopus, is it? Oh my gosh.
The music from that one is my favorite.
Mine is Storm Eagle.
Storm Eagle.
I like Storm Eagle.
I can't say I recall that one. Yeah.
I like that one. Star Fox.
I never played Star Fox.
Oh, okay. Star Fox has really good music. Star Fox 64 is great too, but I like Star Fox music. It's iconic for the series. And then we'll get into the big three here. Super Mario Kart. The first Super Mario Kart
I never played that.
such good music. Yeah.
Did you play that?
The music from that they were like every track, the graphics were limited, and you didn't have a lot of. All you had really were the tracks, because there wasn't a draw distance, and there wasn't like edges, and it was a 3D world. You were on a flat 2D, but you were moving around it. But each track for that made you feel like you were in a different area. Like, oh, I'm in like an area that's supposed to be more like the desert or like the beach or a jungle, and it gave you that feel of it just through the music.
Wow.
Just the type of music. Super Mario World.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
At this point, everything that we talk about Nintendo console from here on out, just throw a Mario in there and then throw this next one in here, but might be the best from the entire series. It's debatable, but A Link to the Past.
Oh,
A Link to the Past has such good music that's just so memorable, and for me, that was middle school, and that was just a time when I can listen to that music and just remember the good times I had with that game, and each track remembers, oh, this is how I remember doing this dungeon the first time experiencing this, because it was at the time the biggest Zelda game that there was. Yeah,
I totally agree with you on that one.
And once again, I love Earthbound. Earthbound's music is great. It's not
Earthbound music is really good.
It's really good. It's not as memorable as some of these other ones for a lot of people, but for me, it's a nice soundtrack.
Yeah, it's really kid like poppy and like fun, and I like the music from Earthbound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would wrap up.
That would wrap up.
Nintendo?
I'm just gonna go over those for Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna sit here and keep going on and on and on about it. But yeah, that's good.
Okay, I want to throw one in because I think it's around that time of the Super Nintendo going on to like PlayStation stuff. It's a really quick one that I want to throw in that was from the PC. And I distinctly remember hearing about this one day. I was in high school, and a friend of mine told me about a special track that you could hear from Warcraft 2. And I was like, oh, really? I didn't know about this. And I already like really enjoyed the music from Warcraft 2. He's like, yeah, you type in this code and you get to hear a special track. And I was like, oh, okay. And I got super excited to go home. I remember walking home. I couldn't wait. I got home. You punch in the word. You type in the word. I am a medieval man.
Yeah.
And it played this remixed version of the announcer talking. Playing the music from Warcraft.
Oh, that's cool. I never knew about that.
You never heard? You guys never heard this?
No.
Oh,
Never heard
okay,
about
wow.
that. That's really cool.
Have you guys played
interesting.
Warcraft? Too?
Yes.
I've only played 3.
Oh, okay.
I started with Warcraft 3.
Started with
okay.
2, the
Yeah.
Frozen Throne one. Whatever it was called. Warcraft 2. I played.
yeah.
I started with an expansion for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Frozen Throne?
or something like that.
'Cause I thought that was 3.
Oh, was that 3? Then maybe I
Yeah.
did play 3. See,
Yeah,
I don't
that
even
does sound
remember.
familiar for me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's then I started with an expansion for 3.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Well, just to add to that, I actually never played those. I played 1 and 2.
That was
Yeah.
it.
But in terms of music, like I remember hearing that, and I used to play the game, and I used to put that track on and just let it repeat over and over because it would just play constantly until you put the keyword back in.
Yeah.
But I wanted to throw that in there because it was such a, you don't get that anymore because it was pre-internet. It was something that one of my friends told me. I had to write down the code and everything, and I distinctly remember I couldn't wait to get home to try it. Whereas nowadays, if you get a code for something, you could probably immediately do it because you got a handheld version of it. Yeah.
I do want to say for PC, I think it's either Quake or Quake 2. Trent Reznor did the soundtrack for.
No way.
Yeah, and I love
didn't
that
know
one.
that.
Yeah, he did it for one of those 2 games, and I like
Wow.
that soundtrack a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, let's try to go to. I want to go to the PlayStation. Or can you think of another console?
Oh, I just had a couple quick. I mean, there's
Well-
another console I want to spend some time on, but
Yeah, because during the PlayStation, we had the 64, right?
Yeah.
That's where I
Oh,
was. I was
see,
on the
yeah,
64
see, I was on the
side.
64 side at the
me too.
beginning. Yeah.
I'm sorry, because I didn't have the 64,
Yeah.
so that's why I don't have anything for that. But okay, let's
Okay.
go to the 64 because I want to hear this.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what's good.
Well, that's where I started with my first Zelda game.
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say-
Ocarina of Time.
I was going to
the
say Ocarina of
soundtrack
Time and
is-
Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Those
it.
are
right.
Once-
great, man.
Once again, here we're in another Nintendo console.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with that, and I'm also gonna throw out there Mario 64. Mario 64 had an awesome soundtrack to it.
I bet if you play it, I'd recognize it, but I never
yeah.
really got to play the game. So
It's a really good game.
Okay.
Just great. And this is, for me, this is kind of like the whole Nintendo 64 PlayStation era. This was coming into high school for me. So this was the time in my life when because music quality was CD quality considered at that point, and you were getting closer to real music, this was the point in my life when I would listen to my CDs while playing video games.
yeah.
So a lot of the games on PlayStation, I would listen to it when I first started, but if it didn't grab me to this level like some of these games did, I'm just going to put on what I want to listen to, throw on a record on the record player.
Yeah, I would do that too.
Or put a CD on the CD player, and I'm going to listen to my music while I play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of where I
You probably broke away.
I broke
from-
away. I go back a little. I'm just kind of okay, yeah, I still like video game music, but it's just becoming fully orchestrated songs now. I miss the whole electronic feel and sound of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was changing. It was evolving into something more because there was more options.
And more space.
Yeah,
And PlayStation, that was their big selling point. We have
Yeah,
CD,
CD
quality
quality,
music.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you had full orchestras on there and full bands on there playing music for you instead of someone having to program this music in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So is that it for N64 titles, Eddie?
I was playing games. I think Perfect Dark. That's a 64 title, right?
that has good music. Yeah.
Yeah, Perfect
Yeah.
Dark. I think the GoldenEye.
GoldenEye's all right. Yeah, I was actually listening to that a couple weeks ago. The soundtrack for it, it's all right. It's not as I guess the gameplay made me like that soundtrack more than the actual soundtrack did, personally.
Didn't GoldenEye like have the iconic music like da 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 da?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but outside of that, just like in the levels you're playing, the music in
Yeah.
the levels, it's very spy and espionage feeling. But yeah.
So what
And
did it have music if it was supposed to be like that?
At parts it had music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's Yoshi's Story had good music. That was
Okay.
fun. But the 64 is kind of when I stopped really paying attention to the quality. And I'm sure I missed some really great soundtracks on there, but yeah.
Okay.
Banjo-Kazooie was good too. Never mind. It was more than I thought.
okay.
Now that I think about Banjo-Kazooie, it was a good soundtrack. But,
All right. Then is that it
Yeah.
for? Okay. So then what can we move on after
Let's
that?
do-
Is
let's
there
do
something else
PlayStation.
I'm
You can do
possibly
PlayStation.
missing?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
go
there's
for it,
something
man.
else I want to talk about, but I'm sure after we catch up, I'll go back with my last 2 points here.
Okay, then perhaps maybe should we switch over to the Dreamcast? I think that might be a shorter list.
I
Then-
didn't have a Dreamcast. I only played it at friends' houses, and usually when you're at someone else's house, they pick the music for me.
Eddie, it looks like you're thinking.
Dreamcast. There was only this one game. It was a car game, and I'm trying to remember what the name of that game was.
Daytona,
Da-
USA.
Crazy Taxi?
No.
Rush
Crazy
2049?
Taxi was
Daytona was
interesting.
the Saturn. Sorry.
Oh, Crazy Taxi had actual music in it,
Did
didn't
it?
it?
I think it might have.
did, yeah.
Actual tracks, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the
Like
game
it
that
had
I'm thinking
Offspring in
about
it?
actually
Yeah.
had like. Is this around the time when they actually started putting in actual
Bands, yeah.
band
Yeah,
soundtracks?
And that's when it
Because
changed for me too.
Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Tony Hawk when I started
Tony
playing
Hawk was
they're-
all bands.
all bands,
Oh,
right?
really? I didn't know that.
All just
Yeah.
the punk rock bands from the late 90s and
Yeah.
other rock and roll bands
You're
from the
right.
late
And I
90s.
started
Yeah.
enjoying that type of music.
Yeah, and then
Was Tony Hawk PlayStation 2?
PlayStation 1.
PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
the original Tony Hawk. So that's when the whole thing changed for me too, because it got less away from like you were licensing music, you were getting artists to have music
that is
on there.
true.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
Now, see, that'd be different for me because I never played those types of games. I'm strictly sticking to my RPGs.
yeah.
Okay.
But just to quickly interject with the Dreamcast, for me, it's the iconic title of Phantasy Star because that was the sole reason why I did get a Dreamcast. Just to quickly, we'll focus on Phantasy Star. So Phantasy Star for me, the whole build up to it was so much because I used to watch the trailers for it that Dreamcast had released, and I remember like the first thing it said Sega. It will in the year 2000 will deliver the first multiplayer online experience for the generation, right? And so when I finally got my hands on the Dreamcast, I was still already a big fan of Phantasy Star. I got to borrow it from a friend of mine, from a very good friend of mine, which is how I got to inherit the Dreamcast. He had Phantasy Star. He knew how much I loved it. I took it home. I remember specifically the day of what it was. I was still in high school. I had something to do later on, but I was so excited to hook it up and play it. I had to leave the house. And I remember somebody was coming to pick me up, and I didn't have much time, but I booted it up. I started it, and on came the music. And the music is so ethereal and so melodic. I mean, remembering it now, it made me want to cry because it was just so good. And I'm thinking about the music now, and it was just fantastic. It was just the roaring song of it. I gotta play it for
It looks
you
like
guys.
it's just like a very emotional thing for you.
It was. It really was because Phantasy Star is such a title that was so important to me. Like for instance, like Zelda. I would equate it to Zelda or Final Fantasy for an iconic RPG for people. For me, it's Phantasy Star, which is I know it's like a title that not many people are aware of. It's a big title in Japan now, where there's a current version of it on the Switch and the PS4 and PC. But then it was a big thing for Sega and Dreamcast, and when I finally got to first play it, and even then, like there was different versions of it. In the second 1.2 version, they had it at 2 levels. That was a big thing. They added 2 levels, and in one of the additional levels they added was they had sampled music from the fight music from the second title. And I remember hearing it for the first time, and I had to stop what I was doing. I stopped playing, and I just wanted to listen to the music because that little bit in there. It's so important to me. and it never did me wrong. And even then, like from that. Going back to OC Remix, I had found a particular artist that had specialized in doing remixes of music from Phantasy Star titles and Phantasy Star Online. That he had done so many different versions of them. I listened to them all, and I remember this is back when I was right after high school, before college. In college, I used to listen to them every day because it just made me so happy. I had found his website and I saw some of the personal things that he had done, and I saw that he did a remix of an XTC song, and I was so blown away that not only was he doing songs from one of my most favorite video games, but he also did a song from one of my most favorite artists, that I actually worked up the courage to write him a fan letter. Nice. And I had never done that before, and I haven't done it since, and I still dream about doing it nowadays, about writing fan letters to people that I admire. And he wrote me back.
Oh, cool.
He actually wrote me back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote me back and he said thank you, and I explained to him how I do imagine, if I remember correctly, I explained to him how much I loved what he'd done with the music. I thought he did such a great job, and I was so stoked that he even did the one for my most favorite band, XTC. He did a remix of Seagulls from XTC. Yeah, I think that's the name of the title. It's eluding me right now, but. He wrote me back and he said thank you, and I was just like, oh, that's so awesome. And his name was Quinn Fox. I think that was his stage name. I don't know if that was his real name, but Quinn Fox. I have to show you his stuff after this. And just to mention too, really quick, the music from Sonic Adventure 2. I really love.
That was good. I remember that on the GameCube.
Yeah. Oh yes, on the GameCube.
Yeah, I played that on the GameCube, not on the.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Did you ever play the game Knights?
I know of the music.
That weird dreamy,
that had
dreamy game.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I know
rented
the music.
That.
Yeah,
I rented that was on the Saturn though, not the Dreamcast.
It was on the Saturn.
Yeah,
there was.
Saturn, right?
I remember there was a. It's funny that you bring that up. There was a special event going on during Phantasy Star Online where online there was a jukebox, and you could play music from Knights, and they actually have that song, one of the iconic songs from there. I recorded it from the game, and I still have the recording of it now, and I still listen to it from time to time. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sega music. Yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to mention about the Dreamcast. That's like probably one of the more iconic experiences that I've had in terms of music. Yeah. So from there, we could probably move on to the PlayStation. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Let's move on to the PlayStation. That's perfectly
Should
fine.
I continue with this, or Eddie? Do you have anything
from PlayStation? No, just like I mentioned before, just
listening to your own music. Outside of we'll say Final Fantasy VII, because that is one game I definitely did not put on my own music for. Was Final Fantasy VII for sure. I'm just trying to think of other games back then.
Well, I can talk about the ones that are iconic for me. It's something that I mentioned before in a lost podcast now.
Oh, our lost podcast. I missed that one.
Podcast, yeah. Is the music from the Lunar series, which is super iconic to me. As I mentioned, I'll tell the story again here, where I had longed to play Lunar for so many years, and the summer before I was able to actually finally play it, I used to listen to the intro song every day for the entire summer. And when I finally got to get the game, the whole music within the game never let me down. I still listen to the music from that soundtrack, and I actually really love music from the second game, Eternal Blue. The first ending song, Rondo of Light and Dark, is so important to me, and I love it so much, and I sing it, I don't know, once a year, at least once a year.
On Christmas.
On Christmas, yeah. Actually, when my daughter was still in the womb, I sang it to her every night before we went to bed. And when we went to do a 3D sonogram of her,
she looked like a character from Lunar.
She was on her side, and we were trying to get her to move, and they were like, "Oh, you should talk to her." And so I started singing that song, and she moved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she moved. Yeah. So the music from Lunar is super iconic to me. It's right up there with as I was explaining the intro, that experience I had with the intro to Phantasy Star. I still love it. I still love it to this day. Yeah. Let's see, another PlayStation title. The music from Mega Man X5, there's this a particular song that I love, and it used to be my ringtone, is Izzy Glow's music. And it was a little bee guy. Did you guys ever play X5?
No, I never played X5.
No.
I never played any of the X after 3.
Oh, really?
After the Super Nintendo, I never
They're
played any of the
so
X.
good
I heard
after
7's
3.
garbage. Is it 7 or 8?
It's all. It's.
Where you
your
don't play as
personal
Mega
taste.
Man?
7 or there's additional characters.
Or 9? You play as some other guy and you shoot a gun? I can't remember the
that's
number.
Axel.
Axel, yeah, the
Axel,
Axel
yeah.
ones, yeah, I never.
He's another character. But going to X5, Izzy Glow's music, it's this really great like guitar riff. I could, it goes dun 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 dun. It's got those really hard hits, and it used to be my ringtone a long time ago. And I remember one time I had it playing. I had it playing in my car as just playing out of the music track, and my daughter goes, "Oh, Daddy, your phone is ringing."
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was a really good one.
Nice. I've had that happen with using music tracks for my phone and then hearing the song and grabbing for my phone like, oh wait, no, that's it playing. Yeah. I've had that happen a couple times with music.
I just remembered too, because remembering that there was another song I used to play. It was a big boss fight music from Phantasy Star 2 on the Sega Genesis. It's a song called Death Place, and I used to use that as my ringtone for when my wife called me. So that was another one too, where I had it playing one day, and my daughter goes, "Oh, your phone is ringing again." I'm like, no, I'm just listening to the music because it's just so iconic. Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in love with video game music. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the PlayStation. I know there's good music on the PlayStation. I'm not saying there's not, but just that's when I was changing into finding what kind of genres of music I liked outside of the video game music.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because then as I mentioned in our Thousand Arms video, where I listening to that was a actual CD quality track song from the musical artist Ayumi Hamasaki, which thankfully I played that game because it completely changed the course of my life after I had played that game and I listened to that song. Yeah. So again, there's another one that I still love, and I have the CD where that song is from.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Song for XX, I believe, is the name of the CD.
I've seen that CD.
Yeah. I
You
showed
brought
it
that
to you.
CD.
Yeah.
I feel bad for actually from here on out. I honestly there's maybe one game now, like newer game, outside of your standard like, hey, here's Wind Waker. It's it's good Zelda music, more Zelda music.
Yeah.
Outside of things like that I really have fallen in love with. But there's like like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2. There's no soundtracks on those. There's nothing on there. Twilight Princess is great. Super Mario Sunshine has really good music, but these are like givens for me because I'm wondering at that point when I got to this point do I like these tracks because of how good they were based on limitations, or do I like them because they ring true to the series and they give me that feeling of like, when I hear Sunshine, I remember Mario games and it makes me warm and fuzzy inside.
What you're talking about, nostalgia.
Yeah,
right?
is it the nostalgia in me at this point when I hear things like Mario Odyssey? It had great music for it. It was very orchestral and very big, and I like it, but is that because I like Mario so much and I like Nintendo so much, or is that because of the quality of the music? So I'm kind of in that weird place, is where I can look back at the old stuff and know because it was limited and it was what I grew up with and I still enjoy it, and I seek out other people who play that type of music.
To add to that, I think that's a really interesting point, because you made me realize that there was a couple of other songs that I remember now. They were end title songs to some of the games on the PlayStation that I got to listen to. Alondra, the ending song to Alondra, and the end song to Breath of Fire 3.
I never beat Breath of Fire 3.
Great title, great game. Now I remember I actually still listen to those songs nowadays. Thank you for reminding me. But I get this sense of I love these songs because I earned them, because I was actually managed to beat the game, and I was treated with this ending title song, and that's why I love them. And I think that's why I like it more. because of that sense of earning it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and so that's kind of like where the gray area. And with the newer music, it's harder for me to find stuff that I'm just like, wow, I need to listen to this with modern video game music, to be honest. I like the music. The music's enjoyable. I now listen to the music. I don't put on my music when I play anymore. I've gone back to listening to all the game music. But going and listening to it by itself as a standalone soundtrack, it's less and less now for me. I don't know if you have any memorable titles from PS2 and on that you want to bring up before we move on.
From PS2
or Xbox or PS3 or
I didn't have an
PS4.
Xbox, no, not much there. I mean, there was Phantasy Star titles on the PS2, but unfortunately, around that era, it's funny that you mentioned that. Around that area, I wasn't able to play as much video games. I still have the games from that time. The only thing I can come to mind that it was like really great music that I would totally listen to outside of the video game is the music from Katamari.
Oh yeah, I will give you that.
Katamari.
Okay,
Yeah.
100%. The Katamari Damacy music is phenomenal. That is one of those iconic soundtracks that you could listen to.
Yeah,
See,
absolutely.
it's things like that I'm forgetting, but that is definitely quality for me. That is something that I would want to listen to outside of. Also, I agree.
The only thing I could say now that I would want to mention in terms of video game music is if I'm not mistaken, it was a title song to Skyward Sword. If it's Zelda's Lullaby backwards.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the title.
I've only
of the
played
title
Skyward
songs.
Sword once.
I have it. I never got to play it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. At least you own a copy of it.
Yeah.
I don't have it anymore, but yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it's Zelda's Lullaby backwards. And to touch on that, to bring it, I guess maybe more nowadays if we can.
Yeah, let's go to now. I mean, I
Nowadays?
only have one thing to talk about.
Well, there's one that I want to
Go
specifically
first.
mention, which is Undertale.
Okay.
And Undertale has the music to Undertale, apart from the storyline, is so fantastic, and you can tell that if I'm not getting the name wrong, Toby Fox. Toby Fox put a lot of heart and soul into the music, and I think he himself
Into the whole game.
Into the whole
Yeah.
game. Yes. Sorry, not to be make it any less of what it's
Considering
worth.
he did that himself.
Yeah, everything himself. Well, practically everything himself.
practically
Yeah.
himself, yeah.
The music itself is so great, but one of the great things about it that I thought was so interesting is that how he uses a lot of the same tracks throughout the game, but they're just sped up or slowed down or reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To show like
Interesting.
the
to
feeling
create-
of the game,
yeah.
to create tension or confusion
Yes.
or ease in an area. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I do love when, like I've talked about, games here that do that, where Kirby's a perfect example, where they're different tracks and they make you feel different ways in different areas, and I love when people can do that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think the first track I ever heard from Undertale is the music for Toriel, which is called Heartache. And it's very, very slow and melodic and really good.
And it really lets you understand the character and what she's kind of starting to go through, and then the story unfolds and it gets crazy.
And then if I'm not mistaken, the version for the husband, Asgore, his music is called Bergen Trucken. If I'm not getting that wrong, it's the same song but just sped up. Yeah. It's so good.
Okay.
So good. Yeah.
And then the only thing I want to mention, I guess, because it's going to be the only thing I can think of right now, is Fallout introduced me to very oldies music.
yeah.
Fallout did a good job at that. Fallout
you
3
know,
and
yes,
4
yes.
did a
Fallout
good job. Yeah.
introduced me to that oldies.
Ragtime.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just
Roaring 20s.
to throw it back to the
Yeah.
Roaring 20s, to throw it back a couple systems, BioShock on the Xbox.
Oh
which
yeah,
has
did a
that
great
kind of
job.
20s
See, there's another one that
They
did the
yeah,
same thing?
I
Okay.
actually BioShock was one where I listened to not only for the music but just for the whole creepiness and the ambiance of
Yeah,
the game,
which
because
did,
they did,
yeah.
and you had to be able to hear where the oh my god,
creepers?
No.
Slicers.
splicers where they were running around. Yeah,
Splicers,
you had
yeah.
to be able to be yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's the
Thank you
only
for
thing
bringing
that
up. Yeah.
game gave to me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, cool. So the only thing I want to talk about, well, before I talk about modern, I just want to go through. No, let me talk about this first, then we'll go and then.
Okay.
Sorry, Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight. I know you
music
love Shovel Knight
was
very
done
much.
by Jake Kaufman. Jake Kaufman did the soundtrack to that. He did the soundtrack to the Shantae games. He's done this.
Really?
He did the soundtrack to the remaster of DuckTales. He is phenomenal.
Wow.
The music from Shovel Knight is a soundtrack that I actually digitally own because I don't know if there's a physical one. It's great. It is such good 16-bit era music that has so, like, every song fits the level you're playing. It lets you understand what kind of level you're in for. It's just so well done, from even the intro and then just everything about it. And
I totally agree. I played Shantae Risky's Revenge on the PS4, and I absolutely agree. Every level with the music was perfectly well designed, very very upbeat and great. I that was a case where I was like, I want to listen to the music. Turn it up.
And he's just really good. Jake Hoffman's phenomenal at this. I do want to circle back to a really old console because it helps me go into modern day chiptune artists. A lot of chiptune stuff and a lot of the chiptune scene was inspired by Game Boy. Because it comes on the Game Boy. A lot of these people start with LSDJ. So Game Boy games that I feel had some great soundtracks for me that I'll still listen to this day. It's weird because I won't listen to them on like YouTube. I will put headphones in a Game Boy, put in the cartridge, turn it on, and just let it be on.
Wow.
And not even play the game, just to listen to the music. I love doing that. Wizards and Warriors 10, Fortress of Fear, is a game I got. It's just this really weird Wizards and Warriors like fantasy game, but I really enjoy the music from the gameplay. Is not that great. It's a fine game. It's fun. It's whatever. It's a Game Boy game, but the music from that I really really enjoy. It has some really good tracks that I really enjoy. Double Dragon, I talked about those already. Still do that. That's like kind of like my portable cassette player. I'll just put in Double Dragon, get to level 2, not spawn any enemies, and just listen to that music on loop for a while.
That's so interesting that you do.
Turtles Follow the Foot Clan, really good music. Probably the best, I think, in any of the Turtles series. I mean, the Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo was great too, but that was there. Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening has such good music. It has such good music to make you feel different parts of the island and just different characters, and it's just so beautifully done for a Game Boy game. I'm going to talk about a couple of puzzle games here that everyone should be able to. Tetris. Who doesn't love Tetris' music?
Tetris.
Come on, it's Tetris. It's just great. The music from it's great. And then the next one I want to talk about and ask a question is Dr. Mario. Fever or chill is the question.
Whichever one that goes
Fever.
That one.
Fever for me too.
One.
Yeah. So
I never played that game actually.
And then the last game I want to talk about on the Game Boy, which just had great music and iconic music, was Pokemon Red and Blue. Pokemon Red and Blue has such good music.
I don't know.
For each area.
You say Pokemon, I immediately think of the intro.
The anime. But I just think of things like it's just so good. Just like when you got to, I can't remember the name of the town right now. The one
Lavender Town.
Yes, the Lavender Town music. Yes, 100%. Yeah. So when you go to different towns, they have different things. When you stepped into Lavender Town, you knew something wasn't right. You knew something creepy was going on. You knew, hey, I'm gonna come into Ghost Pokemon. The second you walk into Lavender Town, it's just that scary, creepy music. The music in the caves was very like there's no hope to get out of this. It's dark. You don't know where you're going. Yeah,
you know the whole lore.
Of Lavender Town, how they changed the music for here because in Japan the song was so depressing.
Eddie's not aware.
Okay, cool. So in Japan, in the original release of Pocket Monster, Leaf Green, and Fire Red, Lavender Town's music was more depressing.
It had a higher pitch. In one of the background notes of the music.
And the lore is that it made kids
that specifically listened to it with headphones on
would get so depressed and possibly suicidal in Japan.
Oh, way.
But the music was changed because of things like that. I don't know if it's true or not, but because of that, the music was changed for the North American release.
It's all a lore.
It is a lore, but they still did go and change the music for the North American release on that.
Yeah.
So Blue and Red have a different one.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that brings me in. Because of that, I wanted to take one last minute here before this ends to talk about a few chiptune artists that I really enjoy and have really great music, and I'm just so amazed with what they can do with the system and everything. I'm gonna butcher this name because I always do. It's Anna Managuchi. They did the Scott Pilgrim soundtrack. Just phenomenal music.
He has his own CDs, or he or she has
the CDs. The CDs that they release, or now digital CDs. digital
Sorry,
tracks.
you're
Yeah.
right. I say
Yeah.
CDs, but yeah, they have
Yeah,
soundtracks.
when we say CDs, it means iTunes albums.
album,
Yeah,
thank you,
albums there.
album.
Okay.
Another one is YMCK. It's a Japanese band who's been
You
doing this
told
for a
me
long
about
time. Yeah,
them, yeah.
YMCK is one of the older ones. Slime Girls is really good. If you get a chance to listen to Slime Girls, they're a smaller group. I found them on Google Play Music like 4 or 5 years ago when I was looking for chiptune artists. Compute Her. Like computer, but Compute Her. It's a one lady, and she does all this music, and it's really good. She has some collaboration albums. She has a Christmas album. It's just great. I really enjoy her music. Yeah.
Actually, thank you for mentioning that, because you might reminded me to go back now, because now I just remembered it. Is a title from PlayStation 2 is the intro song to Final Fantasy X2.
Okay.
The English version sang by Yuna, which is sang by an artist here named Jade.
Okay.
That song.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
you guys
No.
no. You guys never played it, or you're not agreeing?
I
with
never
me?
played
I've
X2
never
because
played
I
it
didn't
either.
enjoy X enough to play X2 personally.
Wow.
I'm just
okay.
not an X
You're
fan.
missing out.
Yeah.
Hold on. That song, that title, the intro song is so energetic and happy. It just makes me want to get up and dance. It's so good. Yeah.
And beside Jake Kaufman, who I talked about already, I did want to throw out a name to probably my favorite of the chiptune artists. His name is Commissar, and I found yeah. And I found his music on that website I was talking about for chiptunes earlier. He would put tracks up there originally, and I don't think he has albums. He just has a YouTube channel. You should go check him out.
Okay.
He just does phenomenal. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about the way he composes these chiptune tracks that just rings true to me, and I really enjoy it. And that was one of the earliest ones that I found that I got into that made me want to explore this genre more. So, Commissar, number one. Good times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Just
You don't happen to have a playlist? You
I
share?
can share playlists with you, Commissar, or some of these people. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd be interested in checking that out.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a really nice. It's one of those genres of music that I didn't know I would. I mean, I should have known I would like, and I didn't know it was until I found it. And it's just one of those things that I'm like, yay for, because it's new music in the style that brings me so much happiness.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
okay, nice.
Any last remarks from you, Eddie?
No, I just know one of the guys that I know. He introduced. I don't know if I knew about it, but like that synth style music.
Okay,
I didn't know I liked that before until recently.
that's cool.
So, were there any like games back then that had that type of music,
Synth style music,
like synthetic,
like anything
like
on the
synthwave?
Genesis. I would
Yeah.
want to say is more kind of synthy type.
Yeah, well, it just depends. We'll talk about it
Okay.
later to find out
Yeah.
more of what you mean by synth style there, so I can maybe go with you, because if you give me some artist names, maybe we can figure out that from there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll sit down and have that conversation.
Yeah, we have to exchange playlists.
Yeah.
now. yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, wow, this was really good. Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, as well, for sharing your experiences. This was really, I think it's been a really great podcast for us. This was Video Game Music. Now it's time to wrap it up with today's closing quote. Quite possibly one of my most favorite lines from the artist Elvis Costello. I'm probably going to really get into this and sing it. Hopefully I won't butcher it too much. But what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? Oh, I love that song. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
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 Retro launch break.